Yeah, okay, we're unmuted.
Awesome. I want you to make sure you know how to mute it again.
Is that just the 3 dots?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Tripp, send Hubert a Slack message if you can hear this.
There's a delay.
Yep.
Hey, Molly.
Are you ready? Is it on?
You could probably reconnect to the MiFi if you want. If you're working on presentation and stuff. What's that for? Oh.
Someone grab Kyle and let me know.
Can you ask Kyle if
We need to grab Kyle.
we're talking? We're talking.
He's monitoring outside, right?
Yeah, he's in the next.
Actually, I don't have anybody watching this.
Kyle should be watching this. Oh, you can see that there's no viewers.
Yeah, I can see there's no viewers.
That's why I'm like, grab Kyle.
Tell Kyle to turn the football game off too.
Yeah.
Because if he's gonna watch football, put him to work doing something else, like working on the website.
You need that Success is Contagious page complete.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. You're the.
Friend told me to come early to save a seat. I don't think I
Hey,
have
testing, testing.
Yeah, not
You got
yet.
headphones in? Thank you. Testing. Kyle, text Hubert or Slack Hubert with the number 1 if you can hear this. There? Sure. Oh, by the way.
Quick check.
Janine, good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Doing
Sound
well.
is kind of low. You gotta go up a little bit.
Has Kyle sent you a message yet?
Yes.
So he can hear this.
What?
And,
He said it's quiet.
Can we go even closer, Cody? To the speaker? Speaker's right up there.
Why does he want to go closer? He can't hear it well?
Yes.
Okay.
This is about it if you're gonna keep the entire stage and screen
What
in.
you want to do. And
Yeah.
so I think this will work fine.
Kyle-
Kyle, it's worth noting that Ben has a
Kyle-
much louder speaking voice than I do.
I don't know if Kyle's in it. I have 0 again.
He could hear Cody, but not.
Okay.
So stop talking because when there was no audio over there, you were able to hear me just fine speaking without the microphone. So Kyle, if I'm speaking directly into the microphone, how clear is my voice on a scale of 1 to 5?
Was it an improvement, Nick? Do you know?
I was feeling it.
Hi, Molly.
Nice to meet you. Just want to let you know so we ever send. So I'm sure.
Nick, I realized what it might have been. It might have just been data on this thing.
Got it. Hey.
Oh, do they?
You're exactly right.
For the people that are in here, it's too okay. Yo, what was the password for the all the way?
Oh, you bring yours in the headphones. I didn't hear anything. Sounds of success. The sounds of success. Do you like this button or no? Or is it more? One button. Then I would just Now, one.
I was noticing it sounds a lot better the closer it is.
If I'm closer?
Yeah.
Here? Oh, then.
Versus here.
Okay, like there. Okay. And boost the. You guys have, if I'm far away, boost the sound. I'll try to or just motion to me. It's tough when I'm talking a lot to stay close.
These fancy things will never come in between. You're part of my entity, here for infinity. When the war has took its part, when the world has dealt its cards, if the hand is hard, together we'll mend your heart. Because when the sun shines, we shine together. Told you I'll be here forever. Said I'll always be your friend. Took an oath and I'm sticking out till the end. Now it's raining more than ever. Know that we still have each other. You can stand on the fire for love. You can stand on the fire for
Very slightly, you know? Yeah, really slightly.
Sorry? It should go about 2 hours. You need to step out and then
I'll go to the other side.
attention gets confusing. My disproportionate reactions fuse when my ego stinks. That's why you wanna come on and play with me. Yeah. Slow down and out, you got me begging
fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
A cat video goes viral. A social cause spreads like wildfire. An unknown startup gets millions of users. But what if the same viral laws applied to our own personal and professional lives? That's what happened to Ben Kaplan. Ben won his first college scholarship at age 16, then won 24 more worth $90,000, enough to attend Harvard for free.
So I won my first scholarship totally accidentally. I didn't even know these were out there. And suddenly it was like, okay, let's apply for more. And I won my second, and I won my third, and my fifth, and my 10th, and my 20th. Totally amazing, changed my life. My parents were thrilled, could not stop dancing around the house.
The second time Ben went viral was when he wrote and self-published his book, How to Go to College, almost for free. Ben booked himself on the TV and speaking circuit and turned his book into a bestseller.
I can still remember my first bookstore event in Portland, and I'm just like praying, like, please let there be 10 people there. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, my mom, my dad, my cousin's gonna come, only 7 more to go. And I walk in there, it's standing room only, we sell 300 books, and I just could not believe it.
Eventually, Ben sold his self-published book to HarperCollins in the largest book deal ever for a first-time self-published author. Ben's books and courses currently have 2 million readers worldwide.
It was the second time lightning struck, and now I'm thinking to myself, maybe there's some kind of pattern here?
The third time was the charm when Ben ventured to South America to take part in Startup Chile, an entrepreneurial incubator program with startups from 75 countries.
I started helping hundreds of startups with their pitch decks and realized they just need a little bit of help knowing how to generate some news. And those first couple of campaigns were so successful that word of mouth spread. I started getting dozens of inquiries every day, and I was like, okay, I guess we have a PR firm.
Within 3 years, Ben's company, PR Hacker, became the fastest growing PR agency in the world, with clients like Budweiser, Citi, and Mercedes-Benz.
So 1 time's a fluke, 2 times is a coincidence, but 3 times might just be a trend. I'm convinced that success is contagious. I can't wait to share what I've learned.
The will o' real, Ben Kaplan, please stand up.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Kaplan.
Okay, not gonna lie, that video got me a little pumped up. I'm excited to be here. I am Ben Kaplan. This is Success is Contagious, and I have a lot of people to thank. First of all of you for coming here to the theater. Thank you very much. To everyone who's watching around the world, some people were nice enough to be up at 3 or 4 in the morning if they're in Europe watching this. Thank you very much. To PR Hacker, my team, our team, who put this together on very, very short notice, did the video you just watched there. Thank you so much to all of you. My lovely fiancée is here, Virginie, who is a feedback loop for all, a lot of what you're gonna see today. So thank you for all the feedback, and of course my parents are here as well, and everything I know or might do related to success, or anything in my life, I really have them to be thankful and grateful for. So, this presentation was 40 years in the making. I can hardly believe it. 40 years in the making. You should have seen me at, about 6 months to a year and a half. Very prolific. It was like some of my best work, really. And to get here, what I was curious about was I was always this kid that, I was a little bit geeky, I was a little bit nerdy, I liked reading books, I liked, pretending to be a journalist and writing little kind of short stories and journalism articles. And I was also introduced by my parents to personal growth. And so I was maybe the only 9-year-old with dog-eared copies of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, right? How many people here have read that book? Okay, a lot of people, you're kind of into personal growth, that's why you're here, I like it. So I liked all of that, and over time, I became, through some of the events you saw, sort of this accidental serendipity, a viral marketer. I worked on a lot of campaigns, and I always loved that work, but I always, just because of how I was brought up, I always wanted it to relate to myself and my life. And I was like, okay, if this cat video can go viral, can I go viral? How can I do it? And so over 40 years, I sort of took some notes and tried some experiments and A/B tested some things. I'm big on that, so you'll see some examples tonight of just like, let's try it one way and let's try it the other way, and let's see what's more contagious. So I did a lot of that and interviewed a lot of people. I was a journalist, I was a syndicated columnist, so I had a chance to interview a lot of people you're going to hear about tonight to sort of see what were their patterns. So the question for all of you is, and by a show of hands, have you ever had a moment in your life where like things are just rolling, like good things are happening, one thing's leading to the next, you're like, wow, this is like easy, this is fantastic. By a show of hands, how many of you have had that experience in your life at some point? Okay, now keep your hands up. Now, snap your fingers. Here we go. Snap your fingers if you would like that to happen more frequently. Snap your fingers. Okay, very good. So we're in the right place. That's what we're going to talk about today, is how to make that contagious process speed up, how to save time. Just to make sure we're in the right mindset, I just want you to repeat a few little things back to me. Can you repeat success?
Success.
There we go, thank you. Can you repeat is?
Is.
Can you repeat contagious?
Contagious.
Let's get sick. Let's get sick, and that's the official hashtag. If you have any feedback or anything else or want questions later, let's get sick, and we'll start now. So, the presentation is going to be divided into 3 parts. We're going to talk about how experience is contagious, and specifically, the experience you accumulate. Are all experiences created equal? Do some experiences propel you forward more than others? How do you get those experiences? We're going to talk about failure. Now, it's kind of a chic, kind of in vogue thing, especially in Silicon Valley, be like, I fail fast, or, I make mistakes. Like, I failed on 27 startups, and this one's going to be fantastic, right? So there's a little bit of that, but failure, are there types of failure that also propels us forward? Are there types of failure that attract more things to us? We're going to explore that a little bit. And finally, energy. So if our ship moving forward is experience and failure, is our ship heading towards, whatever I'll take the metaphor all the way through, the island of success, then energy is the wind. Energy is the fuel that pushes that forward. And can we propel us faster towards success? Okay? So let's start with experience and looking at, do certain experiences help us grow faster? Is there anyone here, raise your hand, was there an experience that you could think of that altered the course of your life? Is there an experience you could think of? Raise your hand. Okay, a lot of people here. Okay, so we know experience can be, and how many people, raise your hand if that altered your life in a really positive way? Now, how about alter your life in a really negative way? Okay, some that happens too, right? So experiences are very influential on us, and can we use the power of experience to do something and propel us in a direction we want? So here's the question. Here's the first question is, I call it the decision. So it's a little thought experiment, which is, let's assume that we have a decision to make and it's not life or death, okay? So this isn't like, do I jump off the bridge or not, right? Okay, clearly don't jump off the bridge, that's very bad, okay? So it's not that kind of question. Let's assume that either you can A, go for it, it's a kind of a binary decision, or B, you're not gonna go for it. You're either gonna go for it or you're not. And 3, let's assume that, like a lot of decisions in life, you're not really sure about the probability. There's like a 50-50 chance you win or lose, okay? It's kind of a toss-up, right? So the question is, what should you do? What should you do?
Go for it.
You would go for it. Who here would go for it? Okay, I didn't give you any information. You would go for that? Really? I didn't even tell you what it is. Okay, you guys are very, very go for it. Who people says, let's collect a little more information before I make this? Okay, that's good. Okay, so we're a little bit of split, a little bit more edgy towards go for it, but all of you are like, I'm in a presentation that's personal growth, I'm gonna go for it, right? Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. So here is essentially the decision you're facing, okay? You have a 50% chance of winning or a 50% chance of losing, and the question is, should you go for it? And obviously you gain on the win side, and of course you lose or you experience loss if it doesn't work out. But the question is, this is how typically we evaluate things like, okay, right, there's pros and cons, there's a chance of success, what's the payout? We're all making all of those mental calculations, sometimes really quickly, sometimes it's instinctual, sometimes we're like writing it down on a sheet of paper, right? So that's the decision we're facing. But the question is, are we missing a piece of the pie? And what about this piece right here? So, the experience piece. Now, you only gain experience if you go for it. Otherwise, your experience level stays the same, right? Because you're not doing anything new, it's going to stay what it is. So, that's the one difference in our equation. Everything else is equal. That if we go for it, we gain some type of experience. And the question is, well, what do we gain? So let's be conservative. So let's say that if we go for it now, our experience benefit is 1%. It's small, because right, we'd much rather win than like lose and learn something. Like, okay, but if we lose, we will learn something, right? But it's small. It's only 1%. So the question is, what should we do now? And the value of experience shifts the odds in your favor. What statistics tells us is that the expected value of any decision, we need to weigh the probabilities of each thing happens, and where there's more value, in this case, where there's even if experience is small, then suddenly going for it has more value. And that means you should go for it. And now you might be thinking, well, I could go for it and I could lose. Absolutely. You could lose 10 times in a row, but your overall way of maximizing your value, which might lead to success by however form you measure it, in terms of, that could be, of course, monetary, but it could be happiness, fulfillment, security, purpose, all those things, then the odds are slightly in favor if you believe, which I think you guys did, because you all said you had an experience all your life, that experience has some type of value. So let's look at that another way. How much is this small edge in probability worth? And so we can look to other industries, for example, to say, okay, if experience is only worth 51%, maybe it's worth 52, 53%, how much is it worth? So let's look at a different industry. How many here like to play blackjack? Okay, a few people here. Good. So these are the odds that the casino wins in blackjack. This is if the player is pretty statistically good, so not making impulse decisions. In a typical blackjack, if you go play a casino, the casino has a 50.5% chance of winning that hand. You have, as a player, a 49.5% chance. That's why lots of people like playing blackjack, right? It's a chance that you can actually win a whole bunch. That's pretty close. That's only a 0.5% shift either way. The question is, well, how much is that little probability edge worth if you play a lot of hands? If you are constantly playing hands, how much is that worth? Well, in the US, it's worth $117 billion. Now, that's all not just blackjack, but that's blackjack and other games. That's how much they make each year. And in fact, what they're trying to do now is how do they get people to play more, not just go and watch shows and everything else. So a small shift in odds has tremendous value. And that's why if we go for it consistently, so you can't just go for it once and then not go for it. But if we are coming from a state of consistently going for it, then we become the casino. The odds shift in our favor. And what is the part that makes you keep going for it? Well, you're going to fail sometimes. It's not going to work out. You're going to lose. So you have to be able to keep playing. If you keep playing and you go for it, then you're the house. And the great news is the house always wins. So I have these things. I apologize for the name. They're called Ben Time stories. You can hear the little pun there. That's okay. If you have your own story to share, it can be Sue time stories or Liz time stories or Carla time stories or whatever. But this is the first one. And this is a story I love because it's about the rocket learner. Some of you probably don't recognize him. You might recognize him now. That was Elon Musk as a child. And the thing that always impresses a lot of people about Elon Musk is like, wow, he has started so many companies in so many different fields, and he's been successful at all of them. I don't know a single probably entrepreneur here in Silicon Valley that doesn't admire him and in some ways wish they could be more like Elon Musk. And just to break it down in case you maybe heard of him, he's the Tesla CEO. He started a lot of companies. This is actually his trajectory. This is how Elon Musk rapidly collects experience. So just to take you through it, there's a company called Zip2, his first. It was B2B local search, not super technologically advanced. It kind of got started in entrepreneurship. It went to PayPal, which is financial services. SpaceX was rocket science. Tesla was automobiles. Solar City was solar energy. Hyperloop was urban transport. Neuralink is recent, is artificial intelligence. And finally, now he's digging tunnels with the Boring Company, right? So that's a tremendous amount of companies. It's not only impressive that a lot of these companies are very successful. I actually don't even know a single person who started that many companies in that many different fields to begin with. So that begs the question for some of our assumptions, which is this. Did Elon Musk start a lot of companies because he is really smart? Or is Elon Musk really smart because he started a lot of companies and collected lots of experience. And what I would suggest and to start thinking about is your ability and his ability to collect experience at a faster pace allowed him to accelerate learning at a faster pace. And because he's experiencing things and learning things at a faster pace, that's the result of the success we see in Elon Musk. Make sense? So let's look at a second question now. So you might be thinking, okay, Ben, I can buy the fact that experience has value. Okay, I get that it shifts the odds in my favor. I don't know, though, if I buy, like, I should act in a state of going for it. I am better off consistently going for it all over the course of my life. So let's look at another question. I call this the dilemma. We now have a decision with 3 options, and let's assume you can only select one of them, and the probability of success is equal. So here's the kind of decision I'm talking about. This is like, who here has ever had a situation where you have like one of 3 different jobs you could pick? Raise your hand. It's like more than one option. Who has that? Okay. Who here, the entrepreneurs, like 3 different ideas for companies you could choose? Okay. Who has like, oh shoot, we need to pivot our company, our investors want action. I have 3 different pivots I could do. Okay, a few people. Who here, isn't involved in tech startup world at all and wants different examples? Okay, a couple people. Okay, so let's take this through and let's take it as a kind of thought example. So here's essentially the situation we're faced. Right? Option A, option B, option C. We got a 50% chance we win or lose. We really don't know. And you're looking at that saying that does not help me at all. But let me suggest a different way to think about it that allows us, when we're not sure what to do, to make better, smarter decisions that add probability in our favor. So what if we evaluated the experience we could get from each one? If you look, and I'll give you an example, a lot of the companies, for instance, for the Elon Musk example, they were imparting a lot of learning. They were statistically actually unlikely they would win, a lot worse than 50-50, right? Actually, most likely that he would lose. But in fact, when he engaged in those companies, the experience part was so great that it outweighed the losing so much that ultimately he learned at such a fast pace that he ultimately came out a winner on top, even though he was close to bankruptcy in Tesla, close to bankruptcy on SolarX. There's many examples of that. So put it another way, if you don't know which option to choose, always select the one with the largest experience value. And that means you have to calculate the largest experience value. And you have to understand it and say, how much experience can I gain from that, even if it doesn't turn out well? And that shifts the probability odds in my favor. Okay, so this is a guy I know, I like to call him Mr. Spin, and I think it's a great example of this. This is bedtime story number 2. And he is a really cool entrepreneur. I doubt anyone here recognizes him. Did anyone recognize the picture? Okay, everyone, if you're a hacker, people recognize the picture. Okay, good. So this is John Osher. And John Osher, I interviewed him for my newspaper column back in the day, because I loved his story. He had a dilemma. He had a dilemma similar to what we described. So basically, he knew how to make this kind of small motors for spinning lollipops. He had a toy company that was pretty successful. He sold it to Hasbro, and it made those kind of spinning lollipops. Now, he sold it to Hasbro. He's got a bit of change from, kind of earnings from that. And it's like, what should he make next? So what he and his team would do is they would walk through Walmart and look for applications where a little spinning motor could do something, right? Because what they were pretty good at was making little spinning motors for really cheap, because you can imagine a lollipop isn't expensive. So he goes through and he sees, ooh, there's a scrubbing dish brush. I can make an automatically rotating dish scrubber, okay? Oh, there's some decorations, some Christmas ornaments. I can make a Christmas ornament that spins around on the tree. Cool. So the question is, what should he pick? There are a lot of options. And so John chose to make a $5 electric toothbrush. And I asked him, why did he choose to make a $5 electric toothbrush that it just spins? And he says, well, I think my skill is not so much choosing what to do, but choosing what not to do. And all of those things I found are all applications, and I intend to one day have all of those products. But if I am able to understand and make this a $5 electric toothbrush, my understanding of these motors is really going to multiply. The greatest learning I can have, the greatest experience I can have comes from this. So therefore, that's going to be my first thing, and maybe the others will follow later. John, his claim to fame, was he's the one who sold a $5 electric toothbrush for $475 million, and that became the Crest Spin Brush. So in a situation with lots of options, lots of choices, you can basically make anything. Steer your path to where you can gain the most experience the most quickly, and that puts the odds in your favor. And even if he would have lost, he would have learned a lot. That he currently has right now, by the way, after he sold that to Procter & Gamble, he also made the spinning dish brush, and then he sold that to Procter & Gamble as well. So there's multiple successes here, but look towards the path of experience, and you can maximize your chance of success and your value even if you don't succeed. Okay? That brings us to bedtime story number 3, the red paperclip. What we've done so far is we've said, okay, let's err on the side of getting more experience. Let's make choices on the side of more experience. But how can that experience be meaningful, right? How is it not just, yes, I have some experience, but I can't apply it in any way? And this is a great example of that. So I love this story. Does anyone recognize this story or this photo? From a few years back, a few people. So this is a guy who played growing up the game Bigger and Better. I don't know if anyone played this, but it's basically you trade one thing to the next. So like, if I give you my clicker and you give me back, your iPad or whatever, then that's a good trade, right? So I want to trade that. And once I have your iPad, someone else has a laptop here, but they really want an iPad, and I trade it for the laptop. So that's what this is. So his idea was, what could he trade that red paperclip into? Something spectacular, something he always wanted. Could he execute a series of trades and get something amazing? So here's what he did. He took the red paperclip, he posted it on Craigslist, and he traded it into a fish-shaped pen. He took that fish-shaped pen and he traded it into a really somewhat scary custom-made doorknob that someone wanted. He took that doorknob and he traded it into a Coleman stove. The stove became a generator. The generator became a pretty good prize, a keg of beer with a Budweiser Light. That became, a snowmobile. This is looking a little better. So he's got a used snowmobile. He takes that, he trades that for an all-expenses trip to, I guess, Yacht, British Columbia. Has anyone been there? Okay, no. It's all-expenses paid outdoorsman nature trip. He trades that for a truck. Someone had an old truck. Now he's got a moving truck. He trades that for a musical recording contract, something really valuable if you want to be a professional singer, to have studio time and a contract to release your songs. He trades that for a year's worth of rent in Phoenix, Arizona. He takes that, he trades that for a dream day with Alice Cooper, where you actually get to hang out with Alice and perform with Alice. He trades that for a collectible Kiss snow globe, which is really rare and actually quite valuable. And he trades that to, if you remember the show LA Law, actor Corbin Burnson, who happens to collect snow globes, and he trades that for a movie role. And at the end of this, finally, he takes that movie role, he trades that, and he is the owner of his very own house. And it looks like that. Okay, so he took, in a physical sense, a lot of these individual trades through sequence to turn it into something really big. And what I would suggest is that as we gain these bits of experience, as we act with going for it and that mentality, we can trade those experience gains we have into something bigger and better. So here is how, from my life, how to go from a high school trip to a major book deal in 9 trades. So first, I was selected to go to a school trip in high school to Washington, D.C. Because I was doing that, I went to the local newspaper in Eugene, Oregon, and said, hey, can I write a column about my experiences? I'm going to D.C. for the first time, one high school student's perspective. They said, okay. I took that, and I traded that, and I called up my senator's office from Oregon and said, I want to meet the senator. They said I could not meet the senator, but I could meet the senator's chief of staff. So I had a meeting with that, and I wanted to interview him for my article for the newspaper. I took that, and I asked the chief of staff if I could have a summer internship. They said they don't give them to kids who are not yet in college, but they said they'd make an exception this one time. That was traded when I went to Harvard. I had a kind of a famous columnist as a mentor there. Actually, at Harvard at the time, George Will was a visiting fellow. He was looking for a few students to mentor. And because I had this whole background with the internship in Washington and wrote the columns, he accepted me to be a mentee. I took that and traded that into the Oregonian and the Boston Globe sent me to the Democrat and Republican national conventions to report on the youth perspective on politics from the conventions. That was traded into a New York Times column. They didn't want me to write about politics, but they did want me to write about education and how I won $90,000 in scholarships. I traded that into a self-published book We printed 5,000 copies. No one wanted it at the beginning, but we started going around speaking. It eventually went viral, and I traded that into a book deal with HarperCollins. And that's how you go from a high school trip to a book deal in 9 steps. So what I would suggest is this. Trade up each new experience to get something bigger and better. I believe that we all are experience traders. And if we act in that manner, and we're always trying to accumulate and collect new experience and trade it for something more, then things come in our path, success comes in our path much, much faster. Okay? So the final point of this section I'll say is that many of you heard that fortune favors the bold. Right? It's kind of a summation of everything we've discussed today. But my question is, but why? Why does fortune favor the bold? And what I would offer is that fortune favors the bold because bold action helps you collect experience faster, and experience is contagious. Okay, so let's talk about failure. So we're accumulating experiences, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. As we do that, as we act in a state of knowing, we're going to fail a whole bunch too, right? It's like we saw those odds, like we shifted at 51%, but we still lose a heck of a lot too. So how can we use failure to push us forward as well? How can failure help us grow? How can we feel smarter and faster? So here's the situation. It's called the workout. So, and here's the question for you. A man walks into a gym and sits down at the bench press. He wants to build muscle as fast as possible. How many reps should he do? Who says 3 reps? No one? Like 3 reps, but like heavy. Okay, like I'm not talking like 1 pound dumbbells, like 3 reps, but heavy. Okay, a few people. 5 reps. Who says 5 reps? Okay, a few people. 5 reps. Okay. Some of you are like, okay, 7 reps. 7 reps. Who's a little more hardcore? 7 reps. 10 reps. 20 reps. 5,000 reps. No? Okay, so let's look and let's think about this in a strategic way. So to answer that question, I'm going to travel back in time. This is a gym in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from in 2010, and I had a trainer at the time. And I go into the gym with the trainer, and I remember we were doing, I think, like, the plan was to do like these like 5x5s, right? You do like 5 sets of 5. Maybe some of you have done that. And so, okay, it's like, whoa, I look at the weights. He's stacked on quite a few, and I'm like, okay. I'm like wondering, like, okay, can I do this? But then I see, a few like people around. They're kind of watching. A few attractive females walk by. I said, okay, I got this. And so I get on the bench press, and I'm there, and I just like, okay, so I take it off, and I'm like, 1, 2. I kind of look at him. He's like, okay, so I'm like, 4, 5. I'm like, 5. I'm like, yes. And then I'm like waiting for him to take the barbell from me, and he like doesn't do anything. And I was like, hey, like 5. And he's like, no, get to failure. Get to failure? I was like, okay. So I'm like, 6. I look at him. He's like, get to failure. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I was going to fail there. But 7. I got it up. He's like, you haven't failed yet. So finally, boom, 8. And then my arms like flops and he caught it. Okay? So what this is called, actually, is getting to failure in weight training. A lot of people have studied it. And the question is, how many reps can you do? And so many of you come in and you're like, go to the gym, you're like, I can do 5 reps. Right? I'm going to do 5. It's a nice number. I like it. It sounds nice and even. 3 would be like not too many. 7 sounds like just a lot. 5 sounds good. So all of us have a perceived limit. And usually what we do is we pick some number a bit under that perceived limit, right? That's also good advice if you don't have a spotter, right? Yeah, don't go to failure if you don't have a spotter. Very good life advice. That is contagious, right? So that's the perceived limit. But then when you study this, what is your actual limit? Well, your actual limit is actually usually something higher than your perceived limit, and usually you can't get to it unless you get to failure, unless you go for it to get to failure, because you never really know what that is. And you think it's your limit, but you don't really know. And people consistently, studies show, underestimate what their actual limit is. So, put another way, according to a 2007 study, getting to failure not only strengthens your body, but it strengthens your mind. You'll do more reps than you thought possible. Right? So how can we get to failure, not just in the weight room, but in other things we do, and how can that propel us forward? So getting to failure creates an enormous stimulus for growth, right? It's, and I don't care how much you do it, like, when you're like, you have a success, something goes really well, you're like, okay, I'm going to learn all the lessons from this. It is just not the same as when you fail, right? Like, at least for me, who here would say that? Like, you absolutely, isn't it just like the silver lining in the cloud? Like, you absolutely learn more when you fail. Who agrees with that statement? Okay, you agree. Good. So, how can we use that to our advantage? So, can you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory? And so, this is what we do all the time at my company, PR Hacker. So, we do a lot of campaigns. We're doing it for clients. We're successful in a lot of ways, but we're always trying to say, how do we push it one step further? Is there some other story idea we haven't tried? Is there some other viral method that we haven't done yet? How do we push it forward to the point where then we fail at that? And so how do we push things so even when we're successful, we're always pushing it to get to failure and then learning, using that experience to learn and grow. We're doing that every day. And it's a great example of bedtime story number 4, the bankrupt haberdasher. And this is his story of failure. He started in the mailroom. It was a dead-end job. He went to work for the railroad. Then he quit. He became a bank clerk, which wasn't bad, but then his family farm failed, so he has to become a farmer and go help the family. He farmed for 10 years. Then the farm was lost, I believe, and then it happened he went to a zinc mine. He lost his investment investing in a zinc mine. A war broke out, so he became an army captain. He fought in the war. Then he started a clothing store, a haberdashery. That fell into debt, and he went bankrupt from that store until finally, he became a small-time county official because they needed someone to run for the position, for the city position. And what happens is, he becomes that small-time city official. And then suddenly, because of a lot of corruption in the area, they're looking for someone to run for the U.S. Senate. A lot of people are working for this big party boss, and they're ruled out because they're corrupt. There's no one to run. He runs, and he beats out 2 other congressmen, becomes U.S. Senator, and then eventually this is Harry Truman, the 33rd U.S. President. And I love this picture here because it's like, who takes a picture of like that when they're young and then takes it again when they're old? I like that very much. I have to remember to do that. So, failure in this point, and getting to failure, is something that propels him forward. It propels him forward, and how can we use that in ways to propel us forward? So, let me ask this question. Who here has applied for a job in the past year? Anyone? Okay, good number of people here. So, the question is, okay, yes, I see PR Hacker people. Okay, welcome. What if job applications required you to list your most meaningful failures instead of your biggest accomplishments? Okay, so we have a sense of that. That's our resume. But what if you had to do something different? I call this the reverse resume. Okay, so let's write our reverse resume. And I don't just mean like, hey, we failed. I mean, this isn't like the kind of failure like, okay, I was in high school and I partied really late one night and then I got in late to my job at Baskin and Robbins and they fired me. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a failure that gives you some insight, that propels you forward. And what if you had to build an entire resume like that? You're like, okay, new product I created fails to win my CEO's support. Maybe fundraising idea doesn't make back costs. I wrote 10 blog posts, got 8 readers, not a good conversion rate. Bomb job interview, back to square one. I'm talking about something like this, and what I would challenge you to do is actually to treat this as a serious exercise and actually try to do this, right? It's hard. It's hard. It's going to be harder than you think. And so, here's an example of how I think about it, which is, do you have a reverse resume gap? So, on your resume, you're like, oh, shoot, I took those 3 years off and kind of traveled and kind of chilled. Right, I got a resume gap. What do I do? So they're like, what were you doing from 2012 to 2015? And I'm like, okay, I was freelancing. Yes, I was definitely freelancing at that time. Right? So you're like that. Okay, so maybe it's like that. But what about a reverse resume gap? What about saying, okay, if you have to build out your resume, and you have to build these meaningful failures over time, and you're like, from 2012 to 2015, I was kind of in a cushy job at Google. Right? I was enjoying the food. They did some laundry for me. It was kind of just good. I didn't really fail that much, right? And then you got a reverse resume gap, right? So what can you do to fix that reverse resume gap? And so here's an example for me, and to offer some perspective of maybe you need to find ways to fail to keep your reverse resume going. And so this is what my book cover looks like. This is the front cover of the book. I'm sorry that I appear on it. I hope that does not deter anyone from reading it. And then that is the back cover of the book. That is like my parents who are here tonight. You can say hello. After to them, I'll hang out also and answer any questions, or we can trade stories. That's them in the back. And so what happens is when you do this, when you write a book, you have this little part that's about the author. It's on the back of your book or inside, and it sounds like Ben Kaplan won more than 24 scholarships, amassing $90,000, blah, 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 Harvard debt-free, blah, 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 blah. Known as a scholarship coach, goes on TV shows, speaks, and expands to 5 times his normal size when placed in water, right? So that's what an about the author bio looks like. But what about if you took this reverse resume approach? And that's one accounting event. But what if we did another equally valid, equally true, but totally different accounting? So here's my reverse bio. Ben Kaplan applied for 12 scholarships and didn't win a single one of them. He wanted to write a book about his experiences, but big publishers weren't interested at all. He went to a startup incubator in South America, and because he never launched his startup idea because he got distracted doing PR work for free. Because his new PR firm was grossly understaffed, he totally missed out on several Fortune 500 clients and millions of dollars in revenue. Okay, so that's true too. That's the other side of this. Oh, thank you for the applause. I appreciate that very much. It takes a special person to have that kind of reverse resume, right? So the point is this: regular failures challenge our comfort zone, and we kind of intrinsically know that. But are we failing enough so that we have that reverse resume that's constantly propelling us forward? So do you challenge yourself enough? And I would suggest that the risk is not so much that you challenge yourself too much. The greater risk, especially for a lot of people in this room, who I see a lot of people, I know some of you, you're achiever types, you're very successful already. The greater risk is actually that you don't challenge yourself enough. And what's the issue is, as you get more successful, it gets harder and harder to do this, right? You're like, oh, the company's working pretty well right now. Or like, oh, I'm getting that nice job. Other priorities come up. So how do you constantly challenge yourself and reinvent yourself to propel failure forward? Okay, and that brings us to the last part of the section, the dance. And so here's the situation. You decide to take a dance class. Over 8 weeks, you learn 17 new dance moves. What is the fastest way to learn the steps? Okay, and so what we're talking about, this happened to me when I was learning how to salsa dance. And this is, in case you don't know, so you step 1, forward, 2, in place, 3, together, and 4, you change your weight. 5, back, 6, in place, 7, together, and 8, you're back together. So it looks a little bit faster like this. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Right? You can get to the side. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So that's the basic salsa step. So I was now we're all gonna do it. Can I see you do the salsa step? Okay. So we were in Portland, and I decided to take a salsa class, and I showed up there, and they taught me this. I'm like, okay, I watched it a few times, like, I got this. I got the 1, 2, 3, the 5, 6, 7, okay. And then they teach you some spins. So you start doing some spins, and you're like, okay, first of all hard, but then you spin, and it's like, wow, she spun, amazing. And then you're like, okay, I can spin myself, I can do that, I can do a little back step, okay, you're feeling pretty good. And here's what happens. How many of you have ever taken a salsa class? Okay, people. Here's what happens. You take a salsa class, and then it's like the day where it's like the whole salsa class is going to go to the salsa club together, okay? We're all going to go. You go as your whole class, and you go there, and you're like, okay, this is going to be great. I do the 1, 2, 3, the 5, 6, 7. I do a spin, and then you get out there, you're dancing with your first person not in the class, and you're like, oh no. You're like, I have to do this to music. No one told me that. I'm like, oh no, it's like she wasn't in the class. She doesn't know the same spins we learned. This is horrible. And so what happens is, then basically everyone sits there and you watch everyone else and basically no one dances, right? Because it's like, well, this is way too hard. And so I remember sitting there, I remember asking my teacher, I said, okay, I saw some really good people dancing. I was like, how long to dance like that guy? She's like, a very long time. A very long time. She had seen me in the class. She knew that was a realistic assessment, okay? And then I said, okay, well, no, but how long? How long is really long? She's like, for a lead to be comfortable, if the guy's the lead, 6 months, okay? So I did a little quick math there. I'm like, okay, 6 months. Let's see, if you go to a club once a week, maybe you dance like, I don't know, 5 dances at a club per week. That means if you went once a week, that's 20 in a month, 6 months. Okay, we're talking 120 dances before you like get comfortable. Okay? I thought to myself, wow, that's a lot. It's gonna take a really long time. Okay, let's get started, right? And so, because I was the one, and I went there, it's like, okay, if you're gonna do this, let's do it big, let's do it bold. Who's the best dancer in here? Okay, it's her, and I saw this woman standing over there, and she was like, you know, very exotically dressed in a salsa outfit. She had all this stuff. She had like tattoos, like sleeves on her arms. Clearly, this wasn't her, her first salsa dance, and she was doing all these like crazy moves and styling. I was like, okay, let's go out there. And I remember asking her to dance, and luckily she was like a kind person who danced with me. And this was like one of the most painful 4 minutes of my life. Like, honestly, it was like, I'm trying to like dance, and she's supposed to spin, and she's not spinning. And then like, she started to like move her toes backwards to avoid getting them stepped on. And all this stuff is like, I got through this dance, and the only thing I could say at the end was like, I'm so sorry. Right? And tip for the guys, never apologize at a salsa dance, because a lot of times the girl thinks it's their fault and not yours. So never apologize, and then maybe they'll take the blame. But clearly this was my fault. So I was like, crap. And then I came back, and all the people in the class saw me and were like, right? And so I was like, okay, 119 to go. Who's next? And so because I was willing to fail a lot and fail repeatedly and do it again, that's what the club looked like. This is Blue Dragonfly. Then I learned at a faster pace. And I remember the day, because 6 weeks later, I entered the Blue Dragonfly again. And I'd done a lot of dances. I hadn't made it all the way to my 120, but I had done like dozens of them. And I see there that same woman there with all the tattoos there. And it's like, okay, here we go again. And I remember going after to dance with her, and I kind of did it, and I did my 1, 2, 3, I did my 5, 6, 7, and well, she kind of was like going with me, and I did a spin, and she spun, and I spun myself, and she was like, okay, she was like kind of following along. This was good. And then I kind of like stumbled and tripped for a second, and she was just trying to take up time, so she was like gave me like a little shimmy. I was like, holy crap, she just gave me a shimmy. And I didn't know what to do, so I was like, I shimmied back, and then suddenly she like gave a half smirk, and she gave me a body roll. I was like, shoot. Okay, I body rolled it back. And then at that point I was feeling pretty confident, so I did one of these, and if you want to use this move, feel free. I did like one of those. I was like that. And then suddenly she was like, And so I got through and by the way, this is how I remember it in my mind. I don't know if it was that smooth and stuff like that. But I was doing it, and then I remember this was like a huge victory in my life. The dance is over. I say thank you for the dance, and this is what she gave me. She goes like that. She gave me the universal sign for not too shabby. I'm not saying it's great, but it's not too shabby. And I felt so good, and I went out there, and I was like, yes, nailed that. And that's how I learned salsa to salsa dance at a faster pace. So can we accelerate the failures we have? Can we accelerate the mistakes we have? How can you make brilliant mistakes? 1, make faster mistakes. At the salsa club, we accelerated that quickly because I had to get a lot of dances in. 2, make smarter mistakes. How can you make a mistake where it counts less, right? Where the loss is worth less, and so you can still, it's a smarter mistake. 3, make deliberate mistakes. This is something I love, a little trick from David Ogilvy, the father of advertising. He would run ads that he knew were bad, and he would run them every once in a while just to see if they were still bad, or if they somehow succeeded. And if they succeeded, then he would look at why. And so this is what we do at PR Hacker, to give you an idea. We use this every day, and so make faster mistakes. For us, we pitch the media within the first week. Really unheard of for a PR firm. We want to get feedback right away. If we're pitching something wrong, we want to know. Make smarter mistakes. So we'll A/B test our pitches on small and local outlets. We'll say, okay, let's not make the mistake with the New York Times. Let's make it with this outlet in Stockton, California. 3, make deliberate mistakes. So we have this blueprint system, and we'll test the limits. We'll say, we know this to be true. We assume this to be true about the pitches, but every once in a while we'll throw something out. We'll pitch something that's different. Sometimes it works, and we'll try to learn from that. So you can use this in your personal life. You can use it in your professional life, and it's really effective. And brilliant mistakes help you create and innovate. And that's why failure is contagious. And so if you can make more brilliant mistakes, your failure will be worth a lot more. Okay. Thank you. So, the final section is energy is contagious. And this is probably my favorite section because I think our understanding of energy is really, is a lot of times kind of misinformed. And so here's the kind of final thought experiment, which is, I call it the schedule. So you have a major deadline coming up. You're worried you won't finish in time. Question is, how much should you work today? Who here is like, all-nighter? Oh yeah, baby, I'm hardcore. I did in college, I have not stopped. Okay, so a few people. Okay, a few people, like hardcore people. Who here is like, okay, I'm gonna work hard, I'm very disciplined, even though I have that like cool boat trip planned, you know, today with friends, I'm not gonna do it, even though it's cool because I'm disciplined, I'm gonna work all day, but I'm not gonna stay up all night. Who would do that? Okay, good people. Who is like, okay, the boat trip is really cool, I think I can kind of show up right before my friends said to get there at 1, but like they're not gonna leave without me, it might be 2, I'll work in the morning, I'll get much done, then I'm gonna go enjoy the boat. Who's gonna do that? So many PR hackers, your hands are up. Okay. Who here is like, hell no, I'm going on the boat. Okay. People, all those people are like not at the successes they're on a boat right now. Right? That's like why they're not here. They're like, it was today, I wanted to come, but the boat was cool. Okay? So, question is, can we figure out what is the best course of action here? So, this is the normal thing that people do is like they have the normal day. And then when you get more successful, you have your normal day, you work your 8 hours, you get pretty efficient, you get pretty productive. Over time, you learn how you work best, you get a lot out of your day. But then the problem is, more stuff mounts. You have more stuff, right? And so they're like, shoot, what do I do? So the first thing you do is you go for an ambitious day, right? So ambitious day, you take that, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna stay at work a bit later. Okay, maybe I'll do some stuff, you know, after dinner. I'll try to, you know, not just like, you know, chat the breeze by the water cooler at work. I'm gonna be like really focused. I need like an ambitious day. Okay. Problem with that is then you eventually get more stuff going, and you're out of time. So shoot, okay, I'm gonna need an excessive day, right? Like I am, you know, those are like the all-nighter people. Those are also another common strategy is like, I'm gonna use every ounce of time I have, like I'm standing in line at the back in the bank, but I'm gonna slack my coworkers and get some stuff done while I'm standing there. And then I got like 3 minutes spare before the Uber arrives, and I'm gonna brainstorm a new campaign, and boom, right? So you're like, I'm gonna get super hyper efficient. And that's probably sustainable for a little bit, but not sustainable longer than that. So these are all strategies, and how many of you here have done one of these strategies? Okay, most people here. So the question is, if that is the path that we're all on, is there a different way? And what I would suggest is that, you know, different studies have shown that when you're in that peak moment of focus, that peak moment of kind of in the present, that peak moment of sort of activation, that moment where you're not even thinking, you're just doing, you're just acting, that kind of concentration, that kind of focus might be worth 4 times as much as that same amount of time when you're not focused, right? So what I suggest is that if you're in the zone, if you have that peak state, you get an energy multiplier, which is that moment, and who here has ever been like in the zone, like in sports or in their work, where it's just like, you're just like, wow, this is so easy, right? If you're in the zone, there's an energy multiplier. So the question is, if eventually time is finite and energy is renewable, shouldn't we manage energy, not time? Right? Because managing time, we get really efficient, we get really effective. Yes, you have to have a schedule. Yes, you have to like, you know, fit stuff in. Yes, there's many time management strategies like let's put first things first, prioritize, get to the most important things. There's many things we can do, and those are good things. But overall, if we want to have more success, if we want success to be contagious, more good things are going to come. We're going to become more successful. That's going to happen. You know, even more opportunities are going to come our way. We're just going to run out of a finite resource. So can we manage our energy to be in that peak state more often? And ultimately, for anyone who's like, oh shoot, there's 24 hours in a day, and like anyone who's ever bragged like, you know, like I can get by on 2.7 hours of sleep. I'm superhuman. Right? Have you ever bragged about that? So ultimately, there's just not enough time. And so how can you manage energy? Can you get more of those peak states in a day instead of just more time? And so there's 4 types of energy when you look through this, and I'm not the first person to say this, but the kind of 4 types of energies are physical energy, right? Like if you're flat out exhausted, I don't care how much excited you are, you're just going to be too exhausted to get stuff done. There's mental energy, right? So it's like, are you stimulated mentally? Where does that come from? There's emotional energy, so it's like when you have an amazing conversation with a friend or a family member, and it's just like, you get that positive burst. There's energy from that. And there's spiritual energy, which can mean a lot of different things. If you're a religious person, it can mean that. If you're just spiritual in terms of your center, it can mean that. I kind of redefine that as purposeful, right? Like, what is your purpose? Where do you get the energy for that? Do you have a greater purpose? And the question is, how can we use those to manage our energy better to become more successful? And so this is how you slingshot around a planet. Does anyone here study or have studied astrophysics? Okay. Has anyone here watched the movie The Martian with Matt Damon? Much easier than studying astrophysics. So this is how you do it. He did it in The Martian. If you watch the movie Apollo 13, which of course based on the real life events, they slingshot around the moon. So that is your spaceship there. That's you going at velocity v. That is this larger object. Maybe it's the moon, maybe it's a planet going at orbital velocity, which is u. And what happens is when you go around the moon, this is astrophysics, what happens is you speed up. You're going twice the speed of the moon plus your speed when you leave. Okay, it's how Matt Damon got home. It's how the Apollo 13 crew actually went around the moon to get back to Earth when they lost power. So the question is, how can we use that to manage our energy better? And what I would suggest is that this is how you slingshot your physical energy, and you should think about it. So what are the sources of your physical energy? And I don't just mean like, yeah, I work out, I feel better about myself, and I get more done. I mean like, you work out, and in that peak moment after workout, you are more ready, maybe this is you or maybe this is not you, you are more ready to just sit down and focus on the things you do. Maybe you get that, maybe that's you. Or maybe it's not that. Maybe your physical energy, like for me, is like maybe you take a hot shower, right? And after that hot shower, it's like you're a little bit more relaxed, and that's your peak energy. So how do you slingshot around your physical energy? Second, how do you slingshot around your mental energy? So if we're taking this energy inventory, and if we have an energy balance, who are the people you go to? I, growing up, would go to my dad. It's like when I had an idea and I wanted to go back and forth with someone, I would call him up because he would give energy, mental energy coming back and forth, right? How do you slingshot your emotional energy? So this is not only this, it's like how do you avoid the black holes, right? How many people have ever had the friend who's like, I want to tell you all about why my significant other sucks. Can we please meet up and talk about why that person really, really sucks? And then you're like, okay, I go there, you're like, yes, I know they suck. And then you're like, next week, you're like, yeah, they really suck. And they're like, what are you saying? They're awesome. How can you say that about my person, right? So that for so mental energy, emotional energy drain. How do you avoid that, or how do you find good sources? And then finally, spiritual energy. Are you centering on your purpose? How does that give you energy? And there's not one master answer to all of this. There's all different things, but I think we think about it in different ways. We sort of say, okay, on one hand, yes, I want more work-life balance. That's good. Yes, I don't want to. No one ever regrets when they're on their deathbed they didn't, that they wish they would have worked more. Like, you get that. I understand that. But the idea is that what are the sources in my life? What are the assets of energy that I have, and how do I use them more effectively, right? And what it does is it changes your actions because you say, okay, I love going out. I'm a social person. Maybe I'm an extrovert, and like me, that gives me a ton of energy. And like I might come back after like going out and having a good time and work for an hour because like I'm in a high energy state, and that hour is worth a lot to me. Versus other people here are like, hell no, I'm not working out. I'm not working after going out. Like I got a good buzz going. This is good. I'm the furthest thing I'm doing, right? So you have to know yourself and take an energy inventory. Okay. And the amazing thing is that positive energy wants to spread. No, it really, really wants to spread. And the example is one of our clients. This is Morris the cat. He's the 9 Lives spokes cat. Very cute. He's a talking cat. Who here knows Morris the cat? For those of you who don't know, so we were in charge of bringing him back as a celebrity again. He was basically Grumpy Cat before Grumpy Cat went away for a while, and so we were in charge of bringing him back, and we were managing his social media accounts. So what I want to show you is Before we came on board for Morris the Cat, there's like a very famous social media agency that was managing him. They did a ton of cute cat photos, cute Morris photos, lots of stuff like that. We did all that same stuff too. But what we try to do is activate positive energy. It is in particular an emotion called awe, wonderment. We wanted everything with Morris to be about transferring energy to the audience and giving them a sense of how his unique perspective on life gives them energy in theirs, okay? And so here's how we did it. Here's an example. So a couple of Morris the Cat posts. On one side we have Morris the Cat, cat wisdom number 2, nap to win. And what it says is, you deserve a good nap. Personally, I sleep 16, 17, 18, maybe 19 hours a day, but not 20 hours. That would be excessive. Okay? On the other side, Morris cat wisdom number 6, don't blame yourself. Stuff happens. Things fall over. You can see the plant fell over. Were you the one who discovered gravity? Unless your name is Sir Isaac Newton, the answer is no. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to impart this positive energy because actually this is about cats, but it's really not. What we're trying to say is, you know what? You know, give yourself a nap. That's okay. No one's going to judge you. That's good. You're like, oh my God, I deserve a nap. Right? And this one over here, you know what? Don't blame yourself. You're too hard on yourself. Give yourself a break. Stuff happens. So we're trying to put that out and have an energy transfer to the audience. I want to show you what happens just that one shift. The cute cat photos haven't changed. And this is what happens in a number of social shares. So before the basic posts over about, like, it was like I think 1 to 2 months time frame, 7,500 shares. We started activating positive energy, awe, wonder. It went up to 83,000 shares over the same period of time. This is organic audience research. This is unpaid on like mostly Facebook. We went from 2,600 average organic audience to 25,000. So activating positive energy is powerful, and it wants to spread. It's something that is powerful in your toolkit. And I want to show how you can apply that to your life. So this is bedtime story number 8, and we just have one more bedtime story after this to wrap up. It's called the Framingham Heart Study. And who here has been to this suburb outside of Boston? Okay, okay, very good. Okay, Framingham. Okay, good. And one of the amazing things about Framingham is they've collected data on this town since 1948. Like all of this health data, all of the social connections between people. So it's an amazing treasure trove of data, and lots of social scientists, health scientists, and others have done studies. And one of the studies I love is a study on how does happiness spread. Okay, how does happiness spread? And this is Framingham. And what the study shows, so what they did was they mapped out, you would take a periodic like self-exam, which is a kind of a standardized psychology test of how happy you are. You answer some questions and they rate how happy you are. And what they did was, then they mapped out all of the connections in the town. So who knows who, right? Like Sue knows Emma, Emma knows Cody, and they have the happiness ranking or rating for every single person, okay? And here's what they found. If you have a friend or someone you know who is happy, you are 15% more likely to be happy yourself. But that's, okay, and sometimes that makes sense. Like Cody comes in the office, he's like really jovial, I'm gonna feel more jovial. But now, here's the part that gets interesting. Second degree. Not so much Cody, but the friend of Cody. If not, it's even Cody, but if Cody's friend, Edmark, is happy, I happen to know Cody's friend, Edmark, I have a 10% chance, a 10% greater likelihood of being happy myself. That's crazy. Edmark's not even here. I haven't seen Edmark in a year, right? But if he's happy, I have a 10% chance. Now, here's the part that even blows your mind. Okay, it's not that Cody's happy. It's not that Edmark's happy. Does Edmark have a friend, another friend?
Jeff.
Jeff. Okay, I don't know Jeff. If Jeff is happy, that's a third degree. I'm 6% more likely to be happy myself. So what this means is that happiness spreads. It wants to spread. It's contagious. By the way, unhappiness does as well. Not quite as strong as this, but if you have a friend who's unhappy, you're 7% more likely to be unhappy yourself as well. So it does work in the other way. But happiness is even more powerful. The positive is even more powerful. Positive energy wants to spread. And so how can we use that? How can we use that to our advantage? And so I believe enthusiasm is your happiness delivery vehicle. It makes everything more contagious. They did a study of employers on why people did not get offered full-time jobs after they were offered an internship. What was the reason? The number one reason overall, I think it was like by like 3/4 of employers who did not offer a full-time job to someone with an internship, was that they were not enthusiastic enough for the job. It had nothing to do with their performance. So enthusiasm is your happiness delivery vehicle, and a great way to make anything you do more contagious is just be enthusiastic. You could leave this presentation and go back to your job and just be enthusiastic for what you're doing tomorrow, and it's your job to find that enthusiasm. It could be the same thing you've done every day for the past 9 months, but you've got to find the enthusiasm there. You could leave this presentation and be excited about personal growth and making things more contagious, and you've got to go share that with someone. And here's the cool thing that's mind-blowing. It's like, I'm enthusiastic, I'm happy with Cody. He's more likely to be happy and enthusiastic. But then, if he's more likely to be enthusiastic and happy, then shoot, I'm more likely to be enthusiastic and happy. Like wrap your brain around that. This is like time travel and Back to the Future. Like, try to make sense of that, right? So, enthusiasm is your delivery vehicle, and if you're enthusiastic, it really matters, and it matters for making success more contagious. Okay? So, before I end on the final thought of the day, I just wanted to kind of share how we're trying to spread happiness a little bit. When I started this, leading this presentation, really my only intention was to have fun with the presentation. It's 40 years in the making, share some perspective I've learned. But over the course of doing this, it's amazing how many people messaged me or were interested. The live streaming is amazing how many people are doing the live streaming who aren't even here. And so we decided that we're going to launch the Success is Contagious podcast, and I'm going to do a weekly column, do a different topic like this. So if this is interesting to you, go to peterhacker.com today, Success is Contagious, and I'm happy to hang out afterwards, and I'd love to hear your contagious stories. I'd love to hear how things spread, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well. And the final thing I want to leave you with is bedtime story number 9, which I call the greatest housekeeper in the world. And this story actually happened in the Bay Area here, in Emeryville, many, many years before I lived here. So many, many years ago, I came to visit my college roommate, and I was in this apartment building in Emeryville, and suddenly I walked in the elevator, and in that elevator was this woman, this kind of older woman, very like shiny silver hair. I saw she was carrying something, and I'm pleasant in an elevator, so I was like, hey, how's your day going? And she looks at me and she says this. She says, "Wonderful." Just like that, like wonderful. So usually when you're just making small talk, you're not expecting that. So I kind of do a double take, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like what happened? Like what's so great?" And she says this to me. I remember this conversation. She says, I walked into an apartment today, and it was the filthiest apartment I had ever seen. Okay, so she says that, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm trying to understand how that's wonderful. I noticed that she's carrying like a bag of cleaning supplies and stuff like that, and cleaning things. And she says to me, because she sees I'm confused, it's like, I walked in that apartment, and I was ready to walk out. No apartment was worth anything to clean that. And I was ready to walk out, but I stopped myself. And I thought about how the young man who owned this apartment, I'd been hired by his mom to come clean it, he'd been going through some troubles in his life. He'd been going through some struggles. And I thought to myself, well, how can he turn his life around living in an apartment like this? It's just not a conducive environment for that. So I said, okay, no, I should clean this apartment. And so she described it to me. At this point, we left the elevator. We're kind of like in the lobby, and I'm ready to go, but I'm kind of like entranced and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like listening to her story. She's like, okay, I walked in and I scrubbed here and I put stuff away and I sweep this up and I look back at the apartment, still super messy. Still super messy. Okay. And so I scrubbed some more. I cleaned some more. I got my hands and my knees, my nooks and crannies. There was stuff growing on top of other stuff that was growing. And I cleaned that up and I looked at the apartment. It was a tad bit better. Slightly better. And so I cleaned, I buffed, I scrubbed, I did more and more and more, and I looked at the apartment and there was some improvement. And I did some more. I cleaned this apartment the entire day. The entire day. And then I looked back at the apartment, and it was sparkling. It was shining. And this is the exact words she said, which I remember. This exact quote. I looked back at the apartment, and it winked at me. And so I'm like, wow. I was like, thank you for telling me that story. I said, like, can I shake your hand? Because now I can tell everyone that I have just met the greatest housekeeper in the world. And by the way, if you ever come up to Portland, can you clean my apartment? So, the point that when I go back to that story, when I want to remember, and how that relates to how I view experience being contagious, and failure being contagious, and energy being contagious, is that in your life, in my life, it is chock full of these moments that are less than glamorous. It is chock full of these moments that are hard. They're difficult. Things seem unfair. But not only is success contagious for you, it is contagious with everyone you touch. And what she told me was that, you know what, I realized that if I clean this apartment today, in some small way, I could make a difference in this young person's life. And if I made a difference in his life, maybe he turned his life around. And if he turned his life around, maybe that he could help someone else. And in some small way, by cleaning this dirty, filthy apartment that I would never do otherwise, maybe today I just helped change the world. And what I suggest is that success is contagious. You can bring more success to you, but it is even more contagious in a group. It is even more contagious in a team. It is even more contagious. One of my life goals for the next phase of my life after this phase is how do I make an impact on people I've never even met before? And it's even more contagious like that. So my wish for all of you is not that, you'll start living in the going for it kind of attitude and you'll accumulate experience. I'll be happy if you do that, but that's not my wish for you. My wish for you is not that, I'll start to understand failure more, I'll try to accelerate and make smarter mistakes and faster mistakes and intentional mistakes. Although that would be great if you did that. My wish for you is not that you'll start to manage energy more than time, although I think that's really useful and really powerful. My wish is that even in these difficult moments, even in these challenges, no matter if you're an entrepreneur, no matter if you're in a company, no matter if you're nothing to do with tech, you will look for the opportunity to find what is wonderful. What is wonderful. And if you live in that mindset, that is positive energy, that is contagious, and that is energy that wants to spread. So thank you so much all for coming. Thank you for listening and believing that experience is contagious. Say one with me. Experience is
contagious.
And failure is
contagious.
And energy is
contagious.
Thank you all for getting sick with me a little bit. Go out there, make it happen, and I wish you all that kind of success. And come hang out with me outside. There's snacks. You can see the. Walk with me out there. Hey, dude, thanks for coming.